If you cannot name 10 problems with the company you own, you are a fanboy, not an investor. Well, I sat down and thought a little bit about my Palantir position and, acknowledging that it's going to be a bumpy ride, I'm here with the first five problems slash challenges I'm seeing for the Palantir, over the next 3, 5 years out and bringing it to you because, here at the Financial Fortress, we are always ready to bring you some interesting information or an opinion so you can become a better investor for the long run. So let's get into it. Well, the number one problem with the Palantir is, believe it or not, Alex Karp. And even though he is basically the Palantir's number one asset, it is simultaneously its liability. Some people call him batshit crazy. I would probably say eccentric. But the substance is the same. The guy is not afraid to drop an occasional f-bomb, and he has lots of enemies. And the mere existence of Alex is the reason many people do not want to invest in Palantir. And even though I personally like his bold language and self-assured demeanor, sometimes it comes off as arrogant, and that might have consequences, right? Because it might kind of permeate through the whole company, and it might be one of the reasons why basically initially Palantir's doctrine was that their product is so vastly superior that they do not really need any sales team, or that the product will basically sell itself, which is very rarely the case, right? And obviously Palantir acknowledged that mistake, and they are now pivoting, which is of course important to be able to self-evaluate some of this stuff. Number two problem slash challenge. On a similar note, there is obviously the politics, right? By the nature of working with the government, Palantir is often walking the thin line between parties for the sake of acquiring and maintaining contracts. And at the same time, perception of the company will be shifting due to various scandals that might come. Because, of course, Palantir and their software, it's a tool. And the tool can be used to many different means, right? Both by government and individual enterprises. And Palantir is definitely going to have some rough times considering their public perception. Number three, limited total addressable market. First, of course, Palantir started as a government contractor, and there is only so much you can shove down the government's throat. And in order to continue growing, Palantir is now successfully pivoting to B2B, right? However, over the very long term horizon, I believe that Palantir should keep scaling down and eventually offer some B2C as well. However, again, that's kind of the long term from now, and Palantir is moving in that direction. But of course, with each of these small pivots comes a challenge, right? And those moments will be critical for the company in the long run. Number four, Palantir is, in a sense, kind of black box for people, right? And that includes the developers, people who understand the software on a very high level, are at the moment mostly only those inside Palantir, right? And if Palantir really wants to scale on a massive global scale, they need for people from outside the company to be able to use the platform and create an ecosystem around it, right? And again, Palantir recently started working on this with their certification program, so it's definitely in progress. But of course, it needs to keep continuing in this direction and scaling. And number five is, of course, stock-based compensation. And that is basically the question if you want to have a bigger portion of a smaller pie or smaller portion of a bigger pie, right? So, of course, the stock-based compensation is critical in order to maintain some of the top talent, right? And if you understand how this works, is that, if you become an employee of a company like Palantir, you basically have these options for the Palantir stock, right? However, you are not just like granted it as like as of now or anything. There is basically like a vesting period that you basically need to work your ass off for multiple of years in order for you to unlock that compensation, right? And usually it's kind of on a rolling basis. So we've obviously seen a massive shareholder dilution after the DPO, but since then it is slowly getting in line with the peers, and hopefully in 22 we will basically see that the Palantir is basically scaling that stock-based compensation down to the levels that are usually in the industry. Um, so these are my 5 kind of problems, challenges that Palantir needs to overcome in order for it to reach, 200 billion, 500 billion, dare I say 1 trillion, maybe by the 2030. Let's see. If you want, I did a video about the Palantir evaluation, and you can check it in one of the corners. And let me know in the comment, are there any other challenges that you see Palantir needing to overcome in the coming years? Let us know. And if you like the video, like and subscribe. Take care.